I read this in a few books and stitched together some research online, so consider this fun science, not canine scripture. If I get something wrong, please roast me politely in the comments, preferably before my dog hires a lawyer. Because today, we are discussing a very strange possibility. Dogs sometimes behave less like tiny wolves and more like chaotic little primates. Not literally, obviously, and your Labrador is not about to grow thumbs and start filing taxes. But when you compare facial expressions, social learning, peacemaking, household politics, and public drama, the similarities get suspiciously entertaining. Dogs and primates traveled down very different evolutionary roads, yet both became intensely social animals that survived by reading everybody else. And whenever a species spends enough time watching faces, tracking relationships, and negotiating snacks, social nonsense is basically guaranteed. So let us begin with the face, because dogs have somehow turned one eyebrow into a full-time fundraising department. Compared with wolves, many dogs have facial anatomy that makes raising the inner eyebrow especially visible to human observers. That movement creates the famous puppy dog eye expression, larger looking eyes, a slightly sad face, and immediate emotional damage to your wallet. Scientists have linked this expression to communication with humans. Although the full evolutionary story is still being debated and refined, normal person version, humans kept responding to expressive dog faces, and expressive dog faces became extremely good at managing humans. That does not mean dogs sit behind the couch planning psychological warfare with charts, lasers, and a quarterly snack target. But dogs are very sensitive to human attention, and some facial movements appear more often when a person is actually watching. So the face is not always random background animation. Sometimes it is part of an active social exchange. You look at the dog, the eyebrow rises, your hand reaches for chicken, and capitalism completes another successful transaction. The really funny part is that humans often think we are reading a clear moral message from that face. We see lowered eyes, a turned head, pinned ears, and that tragic expression, then announce, he knows exactly what he did. Maybe, but studies of the so-called guilty look suggest the expression is strongly influenced by the owner's behavior and scolding. In other words, the dog may not be confessing to the trash can incident like a furry criminal in a courtroom drama. The dog may simply be reading your posture, voice, face, and energy, then switching into please do not escalate this mode. That is less I regret my crime and more the large snack manager appears emotionally unstable, so I should become very small. Primates also pay obsessive attention to faces, gaze, posture, and social tension because missing one signal can become everybody's problem. So dogs are not copying monkey expressions exactly, but both groups live in worlds where faces function like social traffic lights. Green means approach, yellow means calm down, and red means somebody touched the wrong banana or the forbidden kitchen trash. Now, the second suspicious similarity, dogs watch successful individuals and learn from what those individuals do. The original dramatic version says dogs copy the strongest family member so they can bully everyone else, which is hilarious but too absolute. Real dog households are messier than that, because dogs learn from humans, other dogs, routines, rewards, and whatever keeps producing results. Some dogs synchronize with familiar people, follow demonstrations, copy actions, or become more confident after watching another individual solve something. So your dog may not view you as an alpha monkey, because that old alpha label oversimplifies both dog and primate societies. But your dog absolutely notices who opens doors, controls walks, distributes food, reacts to noises, and somehow owns the magical refrigerator. From the dog's perspective, you are less an alpha warrior and more the household administrator with suspiciously powerful thumbs. And once a dog learns your patterns, the dog may use them around other people in ways that look impressively political. For example, if barking makes you intervene, the dog learns that barking can summon management. If pushing between two people earns attention, the dog learns that inserting itself into negotiations has excellent benefits. If growling at another dog causes the other dog to retreat, that behavior may become stronger because the strategy worked. That is not automatically a master plan to dominate the family. Sometimes it is simply behavior receiving a paycheck. Still, the final result can look like a tiny primate politician discovered lobbying, emotional leverage, and aggressive networking before breakfast. Primates also learn by watching higher ranking, skilled, successful, or socially important individuals, depending on the species and situation. Young animals especially monitor who gets access, who receives support, who knows the environment, and who keeps surviving terrible decisions. Dogs do something comparable in their own canine human world. They watch the creatures who seem to know how the system operates. Unfortunately, that means your dog also studies your bad habits, your nervous reactions, and your completely unnecessary argument with the vacuum cleaner. Very loyal, slightly investigative. Now, let us talk about the dog smile, because this one causes more translation errors than a cheap subtitle website. Some dogs pull their lips back and expose their teeth during greetings, excitement, uncertainty, or tense social moments. Humans see teeth and immediately choose one of two conclusions: adorable smile or incoming lawsuit. But the rest of the body matters enormously: posture, movement, eyes, ears, tension, distance, and the situation around the expression. A relaxed open mouth is not the same as a stiff threat display, and a submissive grin is not simply a human smile. In a submissive grin, the dog may lower its body, squint, wiggle, turn slightly, or show other signals that reduce confrontation. The message is closer to, I am friendly, I am not challenging you, please cancel the boss fight. Dogs also use behaviors such as looking away, lip licking, yawning, lowering posture, or moving carefully during social tension. Researchers discuss some of these behaviors as possible appeasement signals, although context remains important and no single gesture translates perfectly. That is where the primate comparison becomes interesting, because many primates also use facial displays to manage conflict and communicate submission. Chimpanzees, for example, have facial expressions involving exposed teeth, but their meaning depends on context and should not be treated as identical to dogs. So saying a dog's grin is exactly the same as a chimpanzee display would be too neat for biology. Nature rarely gives us a clean copy and paste. It gives us two confusing systems that occasionally rhyme and then refuses customer support. The useful comparison is functional social animals often need ways to say, I do not want this disagreement to become expensive. That could mean turning away, shrinking the body, softening movement, displaying the face, or performing some species-specific peacemaking ritual. Humans do this too, except we call it nervous laughter during a meeting where the manager says, Can we talk privately? Different species. Same emotional software bug? Now we enter the dangerous territory of household politics, 3 dogs, 1 couch, and enough tension for an 8-season television series. Dogs living together can form stable relationships, preferences, rank patterns, friendships, rivalries, and completely uneven levels of tolerance. One dog may regularly move aside for another, one may control certain resting places, and 2 may prefer spending time together. But the claim that 3 dogs automatically form factions and deliberately isolate one victim goes much further than the evidence allows. Sometimes dogs do appear to gang up during conflict, follow another dog's excitement, or repeatedly direct attention toward the same individual. Yet that pattern may involve resource competition, fear, poor introductions, mismatched playstyles, learned behavior, stress, or individual relationships. It is not always a canine parliament voting to remove Kevin from the couch. Primate groups can contain alliances and coalitions, and some species use social support in conflicts with genuinely impressive political complexity. Dogs have social networks too, but their household relationships vary greatly, and not every group organizes itself like chimpanzee parliament. Still, if you live with several dogs, you may notice that relationships are not evenly distributed like free Wi-Fi. Dog A may love dog B, tolerate dog C, avoid dog D, and become deeply offended when dog E approaches the blue bed. Then dog B joins the argument because dog A barked. Dog C starts running for no reason, and dog D steals the abandoned toy. Nobody understands what happened, but somehow dog D made a profit. This is where owners should avoid turning every conflict into a dominant story, because labels can hide the actual trigger. Watch who guards resources, who blocks movement, who becomes stiff, who repeatedly retreats, and whether one dog is being harassed. If tension is frequent or escalating, a qualified veterinarian or behavior professional is much more useful than appointing yourself jungle king. The dog does not need a dramatic leadership speech. The dog needs safer management and better information. Now, for the final comparison, dogs becoming award-winning drama queens the moment a human audience appears. There is real research suggesting that a human audience can influence some canine behavioral displays and facial communication. Dogs pay attention to whether we are looking, what we can see, and whether their behavior has worked on us before. But saying dogs only whine or throw tantrums when owners are present would be wrong, because dogs may vocalize alone from distress, fear, frustration, or separation-related problems. So this is not proof that every dramatic sound is fake, manipulative, or performed for attention. Sometimes the dog is genuinely uncomfortable. Sometimes the dog learned that a particular performance summons immediate human assistance. And sometimes both things are true, because real emotion and learned strategy can share the same stage. Imagine a dog lightly bumps its paw, looks around, sees nobody, and continues walking like a retired action hero. Then the owner enters, and suddenly the same paw has survived 3 wars, a shipwreck, and an emotionally complicated divorce. That may be exaggeration for comedy, but owners absolutely reinforce behavior without noticing it. The dog whines, the human rushes over, attention arrives, and the brain quietly records excellent button, press again, later. Baby primates also direct powerful calls toward caregivers, because caregiver attention is literally part of survival. Across many social species, signals become stronger, more frequent, or more targeted when the correct receiver is available. That is not evil manipulation in the cartoon villain sense. Communication is supposed to influence somebody. A doorbell influences you to open a door. A baby's cry influences care, and a dog's stare influences the redistribution of cheese. The ethical difference is that we should not dismiss distress merely because an audience changes how it is expressed. If a dog repeatedly cries, limps, panics, destroys things, or behaves unusually, check the animal before making jokes about its acting career. Rule out pain and welfare problems first. Comedy comes after the dog is safe. Annoyingly responsible, but yes. So, do dogs act exactly like monkeys? No, and the word exactly is doing criminal levels of overtime in that sentence. Dogs are canids shaped by domestication and life with humans. Monkeys and apes are primates with their own evolutionary histories. But both live socially, monitor attention, read faces, learn from others, negotiate conflict, form relationships, and adjust signals to an audience. That creates fascinating parallels without requiring us to pretend your Pomeranian is secretly a tiny chimpanzee wearing a cloud costume. The better conclusion is that social life keeps inventing similar problems. Who has power? Who has food? Who is watching? And who needs calming down? Different animals develop different tools, but the social job descriptions can look weirdly familiar. Raise an eyebrow, follow the successful individual, soften a conflict, choose allies, perform harder when management arrives. Honestly, that is not just dogs and primates. That is also every family group chat ever created. So next time your dog gives side eye, flashes a nervous grin, recruits another dog, or suddenly develops theatrical injuries near the kitchen, do not immediately call it guilt, dominance, manipulation, or monkey politics. Look at the whole body, the context, the history, and what consequence the behavior has been earning. Then admire the deeper truth humans domesticated dogs, and dogs responded by becoming extremely skilled at operating humans. We gave them shelter, food, and medical care. They gave us eyebrow-based taxation. Fair trade, apparently